I think it's very important that tradition stays, and tradition has a huge part of all this. But there's also points where you look at tradition and go, is that still fit for purpose today? Is that still the right thing to do? Are we still doing and having the most impact we could be having?
There is an unmistakable, earth-shattering tremor vibrating through the ancient, storied foundations of Windsor Castle, a seismic shift in the royal hierarchy that the British establishment is working overtime to suppress. Behind the gilded gates and the heavy velvet curtains, the carefully curated image of a unified House of Windsor is beginning to fracture under the weight of a high-stakes power struggle. Prince William, the future king and the primary architect of the monarchy's next chapter, has reportedly cast aside the traditional mask of royal diplomacy to reveal a steelier, more uncompromising side of his character. Far from the polite public appearances and the shared smiles on the palace balcony, sources suggest that William has issued a cold, calculated, and devastating ultimatum. This was not a directive aimed at a foreign dignitary or a political adversary, but rather a direct challenge to his stepmother, Queen Camilla. The implications are staggering, as reports emerge of her inner circle being dismantled and her most trusted allies being systematically banished from the royal fold. We are witnessing a palace war unfolding in real time, a confrontation where the stakes involve not just personal grievances, but the very survival and reputation of the crown itself. For months, the palace machinery has desperately tried to keep this internal combustion hidden from public view, but the silence has finally been broken by a series of events that began with a single, high-pressure state banquet. To truly grasp why Prince William reportedly reached his breaking point, one must look back to the evening of March 18, 2026, a date that many insiders now view as the catalyst for this royal explosion. The occasion was the first state visit from Nigeria to the United Kingdom in nearly 4 decades, an event of immense diplomatic weight that required the full, glittering pageantry of the British monarchy. As Nigerian President Bola Tinubu arrived at Windsor Castle, the world's cameras were trained on the spectacle, capturing the lavish decorations and the historical significance of the meeting. However, behind the scenes, the atmosphere was anything but celebratory. According to multiple well-placed insiders, Prince William was absolutely incandescent with rage. Sources have revealed that his reaction to the grueling schedule set for King Charles during this 2-day visit was one of outright fury. At 77 years old, and visibly showing the physical toll of his ongoing health challenges, the king was being asked to navigate an itinerary that William deemed excessively demanding and dangerously exhausting. In the weeks leading up to the banquet, Charles had shown clear signs of fatigue, yet the machinery of the state continued to push forward. A source intimately familiar with the situation described that evening as a definitive turning point for the Prince of Wales. William firmly believed that his father was simply not well enough to endure the rigors of such a high-profile event, and that the priority should have been rest and recovery, not the optics of international diplomacy. The tension escalated when Queen Camilla reportedly took a different stance, insisting that their presence at the banquet was not just expected, but essential. In her view, the scrutiny the royal family was under demanded a show of strength and continuity. The decision was ultimately made for the king and queen to attend, but rather than alleviating the growing concerns about the monarch's health, the appearance only served to heighten them. After the banquet, the private discussions within the palace walls intensified, centered primarily on the king's fatigued and unwell appearance. For William, this was the final piece of evidence he needed to confirm his worst fears. His father was being pushed beyond his physical limits. Crucially, William did not place the blame on the palace schedulers or the diplomatic corps responsible for the logistics of the visit. Instead, he held Queen Camilla personally accountable. Sources close to the prince noted that he felt a deep sense of distress and helplessness as he watched what he perceived to be his father's overexertion. Every attempt William made to suggest a slowdown or a modification of the king's duties was, in his eyes, effectively dismissed by Camilla. This perceived lack of concern for the man behind the crown transformed a simmering private frustration into a full-scale palace-level confrontation. The gloves were off, and the future king was no longer willing to play the role of the silent observer. This battle over King Charles's health has created a chasm between the Prince of Wales and his stepmother that many fear may be unbridgeable. Palace insiders describe a situation where William feels almost at war with Camilla, viewing her influence as a direct threat to his father's well-being. He has repeatedly petitioned the king to focus on his recovery, and to take a meaningful step back from the crushing weight of public duties. However, each time this sensitive issue is raised, it triggers a new wave of tension, as Camilla continues to encourage Charles to remain active and visible in his role. At the core of this dispute is a fundamental clash of philosophies regarding the nature of the monarchy. Camilla reportedly believes that a visible, active king is vital for the stability of the institution and for Charles's own morale, providing him with a sense of purpose during a difficult time. One of the king's long-term friends noted that work has always been a protective shield for Charles, offering him a sense of stability that he craves. Camilla likely sees her support as an act of loyalty, helping her husband maintain his dignity and his duty. But William sees the situation through a much harsher lens. An aide has noted that William now views himself in direct opposition to his stepmother, seeing her not as a supportive spouse, but as a barrier to his father's health. The emotional weight of this conflict is compounded by the shadow of the past. Having lost his mother, Princess Diana, at such a young age, William is acutely sensitive to the idea of those around a monarch valuing the institution over the individual. He fears that history is in danger of repeating itself, with the demands of the crown taking precedence over the human being wearing it. In this context, his view of Camilla has shifted from that of a stepmother, with a differing opinion to a person who is actively obstructing the necessary care for his father. For a future king, such barriers are often viewed as obstacles that must be removed for the greater good of the family and the state. This led to a stunning development in February 2026, when a report surfaced claiming that William had issued a clear and uncompromising ultimatum to the Queen. He allegedly demanded that she completely sever all ties with Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, or face his public and private disapproval. This was not a request based on personal whim, but a strategic move aimed at protecting the royal reputation. William reportedly believes that distancing the family from Ferguson is a non-negotiable necessity, particularly in light of Prince Andrew's ongoing and high-profile legal troubles. The urgency of this ultimatum was fueled by the release of documents from the U.S. Department of Justice, which included Sarah Ferguson's name. While sources are quick to point out that she was not accused of any wrongdoing, William views the royal family's current position as far too fragile to tolerate any proximity to scandal. In his mind, personal feelings and long-standing loyalties must be sacrificed for the sake of the monarchy's integrity. However, Queen Camilla, known for her fierce loyalty to her friends, reportedly refused to comply. Her bond with Fergie predates her marriage to King Charles and has survived decades of royal upheaval and tabloid scandals. Camilla is not a woman who abandons her allies easily, even under pressure from the heir to the throne. While King Charles has already taken significant steps to distance the family from the Yorks, removing official titles and even evicting them from their long-term residence, William's demand that Camilla purge her personal friendships was seen by some as a step too far. Critics and observers have pointed out that William is not yet the king, yet he is increasingly acting as if the crown already rests on his head, issuing orders and demanding a level of unity that borders on absolute control. The friction between William and Camilla is inextricably linked to the ghosts of Diana, the unresolved wounds of a family history that continues to haunt the present. Princess Diana's presence is a constant, invisible factor in their relationship, influencing every interaction and fueling the underlying resentment. It is no secret that William was deeply wounded by the affair between Camilla and his father, an affair that ultimately led to the public and painful collapse of his parents' marriage. Royal expert Christopher Anderson has suggested that while William has learned to tolerate Camilla over the years, a sense of mutual unease remains, with Camilla allegedly harboring a certain degree of fear toward her stepson. This history was brought back into the sharpest possible focus by Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, in which he detailed how both he and William pleaded with their father not to marry Camilla. They famously viewed her as the wicked stepmother, the villain in the story of their mother's life. Although a fragile peace was maintained for a time, and the two even developed what some insiders described as a workable, occasionally warm relationship, the current health crisis has shattered that equilibrium. Sources indicate that the recent conflicts have reopened old wounds that never truly healed. One insider mentioned that William finds it impossible to forgive Camilla for the situation he currently perceives. What might have once been a simple disagreement over royal duty has morphed into something deeply personal. When William watches Camilla encourage his father through a punishing public schedule despite his illness, he doesn't see a devoted wife. He sees the woman who disrupted his childhood home, now making life-altering decisions about his father's health, decisions he believes she has no right to make. The echoes of Diana's famous statement about there being 3 people in her marriage are louder than ever. As Charles's health declines, the old grief and anger are surging to the surface, cracking the carefully maintained facade of royal unity and revealing a depth of pain that could fundamentally alter the future of the British monarchy. The tension reached a boiling point with the release of Tom Bower's investigative biography, Betrayal, Power, Deceit, and the Fight for the Future of the Royal Family, in late March 2026. Bower's book acted as a literary grenade, detonated at the most vulnerable moment for the family. Among its most explosive claims was the allegation that Camilla believed Meghan Markle had brainwashed Prince Harry. For William, this was a public relations disaster he could ill afford. He has spent years attempting to build a firewall between the working royals and the relentless drama surrounding the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Whether the statement attributed to Camilla was accurate or not, its publication dragged Meghan back into the center of the royal narrative, distracting from the serious issues William was trying to manage, including his father's health and the ongoing issues with the York family. The book also delved into the complex power dynamics and shifting loyalties within the palace as Charles's reign enters its most challenging phase. One source noted that the atmosphere at Windsor Castle turned decidedly chillier following the book's release, as the implications of betrayal and internal maneuvering became impossible to ignore. Perhaps most importantly, the Bower book reignited a crucial debate: what will become of Queen Camilla when William eventually ascends the throne? Royal expert Joe Little has been clear on this point. Once William is king, he will be the sole arbiter of the monarchy's future. Every aspect of Camilla's life, both public and private, will be subject to a rigorous and potentially unsympathetic review. Insiders believe this is not a distant concern, but a reality William is already preparing for. The constitutional straw in this situation is that while this looks like a typical family feud, it is actually a slow-motion power transfer occurring in plain sight. As one analysis suggests, William is positioning himself as the ultimate protector of the crown, even if that means overstepping the traditional boundaries of an heir apparent. The strategic partnership between the United Kingdom and nations like Nigeria makes the king's role as a diplomatic figurehead more critical than ever, meaning Charles's workload is a matter of national interest. William's intervention in his father's schedule and his demands regarding Camilla's social circle are unprecedented moves for a Prince of Wales. He has watched the downfall of Prince Andrew and the departure of Prince Harry, and he has concluded that the monarchy cannot afford any more crises. In his view, he cannot wait for the formal handover of power. He must act as the de facto leader now to ensure the institution survives. Camilla's influence and her ties to her own extended family are seen by William as potential liabilities in the leaner monarchy he envisions. The Parker Bowles clan has enjoyed significant proximity to the throne during Charles's reign, but that era is likely coming to an end. Reports suggest that William plans to drastically limit the involvement of anyone who does not fit into his vision of a streamlined, scandal-free royal household. This has even put the king's nieces, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, on high alert. The cousins group is reportedly rife with rumors about the sweeping changes William intends to implement, leading some members of the family to consider legal counsel to protect their interests once Charles is no longer on the throne. William's vision is one of absolute control, and divided loyalties will not be tolerated. He is taking his father's original idea of a slimmed-down monarchy and accelerating it with a ruthlessness that has caught many off guard. When the day finally arrives that William wears the crown, Queen Camilla's status will undergo a profound transformation. While royal protocol and the precedent set by the late Queen Mother suggest she may retain the title of Queen, her actual power and visibility will be entirely at the discretion of her stepson. Christopher Anderson believes her role will be drastically reassessed, and while she may still attend major ceremonial events, her influence within the palace walls will likely vanish. The underlying unhappiness that both William and Harry have felt regarding Camilla's elevation has never truly gone away. It has merely been suppressed for the sake of their father. Without Charles there to act as a buffer, the relationship between the new king and his stepmother is expected to be one of cold formality at best. The real question that remains is whether Camilla will accept these diminishing returns gracefully, or if the conflict that has been simmering behind the
Charles is
closed doors
dealing
of
with a
Windsor
cancer
Castle
diagnosis.
will finally
The
erupt
amount
into
of
a
work
public
he takes
spectacle
on,
that
Prince
changes
William
the British
reportedly
monarchy
snapped.
forever.
We need to
One thing
revisit
is
the
certain.
evening of
The
March
era of
18th.
William has already begun,
future king
and he is drawing his lines in the
A
sand with
palace
the precision of a
conflict
man
could
who
shake
knows
the
exactly
Britons to
what kind
affect
of
them.
king he
People
intends to be.
report that William was hurt by
The
Camilla's
crown may
affair
not
with his
yet be on
father,
his head,
Barbara,
but the power is
experts
already
say
in
it
his
is
hands,
much more
and the
significant
fallout
than
of this
that.
palace
This
war
is a
will
slow
shape the royal
betrayal
landscape
added
for
fuel to the
generations
fire.
to come.
One source